And say what's up, say where you watch it from. Same rules of engagement. Happy Saturday. Glad to be back with you guys. Man, I've been up in the mountains, looking at houses, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I've been having fun, moving towards that next stage of life. So it's been fun. And now we're back. I've been a lot of places where internet has not been good. So live streaming just hasn't really been a thing the last couple of days for me, with being in the mountains and all of the snow that we got, and looking at different properties and things like that. So I'm super excited to be back with you guys. I missed going live. Until then, I was bringing you guys a little bit of short comedy, which is fine. You know, I spent, just those of you that have been around the channel for a while know that I've spent some time doing shorts in the past. If I'm honest with you guys, I like the political shorts, but I don't. You guys know that I end my YouTube shorts, so that's how I did it when I did it for a year straight. They're funny because we got a lot of political things going on right now, and we react to news, IRL, current events. But if I'm honest with you, I hate the political shorts, man, because it's like, I just think it's better when you got fast takes and you are your YouTube shorts, because you are a representation of your channel, right? So I will be making them not private, but I am going to be unlisting some of them pretty soon. So if you guys want to see them, I can send you a link and you can look at them. But I really kind of want to jump back into like me being the YouTube shorts and me bringing my own personality to that. So yeah, I'm glad to be back with you guys. Some of you guys got snow, some of you guys didn't. I got a lot. I've been shoveling for days. I'm over shoveling. I'm so over it. And it's like in the mountains it was worse. I'm not far from northern PA. It's one of my favorite parts of the region. And it's like they got slammed. It was just crazy what happened out there. So I'm excited to be with you guys today. We got a couple of news clips to jump into per the title. I like to go in order for you guys. That way, whenever people jump into the live stream, they can just jump right in wherever we're at. So let me grab this title for you guys. It is currently cold where I am still. It is currently cold. Cold meaning I'm definitely in the single digits. So I've been in single digit degree weather before, so it's not a big. I've cold weather trained. So in the Marine Corps, I've been in single degree weather. Not fun, but I am used to it. It doesn't bother me. It's refreshing to say the least. But people who aren't used to it, they're like, man, you capping, that's crazy. And I mean, it does feel kind of crazy, but I'm not going to lie, it's pretty nice. All right, first up, I'm trying to figure out, like, if I don't look right here, I don't see it. All right, so let's go. Chuck Schumer. All right, yeah, so just because I want to go in order for you guys, let's start off with Chuck Schumer talking about a shutdown looming, right? So this has to do with Democrats not being able to come to a deal again, once again with the Republicans. We talked about this a couple of months ago, so we knew this would come back up. Chuck Schumer has a little bit to say about it, so let's see what he's talking about. All right, guys, and also same rules of engagement for the live stream. I have to say this because it's just a disclaimer. When you go into the chat, make sure that you share your opinion because we value that here. Please do not disrespect any mods, subscribers, or supporters. That's the only thing that gets you banned from my chat or gets you censored in any way, shape, or form. If you're ignorant in chat, that's going to happen as well. The mods or me, we're just going to end up kicking you out. So just be respectful because we value your opinion here. We want you guys to talk in the chat and share your opinion, but we just don't stand for ignorance. So shout out to you guys, W chat. Let's get into the clips.
I don't feel like cooking today, so I'm trying 2 meals from Cook Unity to see if they're actually worth the hype. And first up, we're starting with this mission.
A partial U.S. government shutdown began on Saturday after Congress failed to approve a deal to keep a wide range of operations funded ahead of a midnight deadline. The Senate on Friday did pass a spending package by a bipartisan vote of 71 to 29.
The bill, as amended, has passed.
But the House of Representatives is out of town and not expected to take up the measure until Monday. That's according to a Republican leadership aide.
Republicans had to negotiate with us to pass any bill.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
The agreement we reached today did precisely what Democrats wanted. It separated DHS from the other funding bills so we can overhaul DHS to rein in ICE and end the violence.
Senate Democrats, angered by fatal shootings by immigration agents in Minneapolis, had threatened to hold up the funding package in an effort to force President Trump to rein in the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats want to end roving patrols, require agents to wear body cameras, prohibit them from wearing face masks, among other things. And Republicans say they are open to some of their ideas. Here's Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
Reform ICE, count me in. But if you don't get to the root cause of the problem, then you're really not serious about solving it.
With congressional approval of the deal, DHS funding would be extended for 2 weeks, giving negotiators time to reach an agreement on immigration tactics.
Are you looking to sell your house as is without paying for costly repairs, inspections?
Hey, Bill O'Reilly here. Welcome to the No Spin News, Thursday, January 29th, 2026. Stand up for your country. Well, not a lot new out of Minnesota, which I think is a good thing. But things are evolving there. We have all of it for you. We're way ahead on this story, as you know. And President Trump ran some of our analysis this morning. Tell you about that. I expect something soon to happen in Iran. Okay, I don't know why. They shut it down. I don't have very good sources on the ground. But it's moving in that direction. It'll be military stuff. So I expect that to happen soon. When it does, we'll be all over it. Just go to BillO'Reilly.com. And I don't think the Democrats are going to shut down the government, although the Senate today didn't pass the big spending bill. But Democrats might want to go down with the ship. But it's foolish. What they do, look, we can work this out. You don't have to stop the government and, inflict pain on a whole nation. So let's go to the talking points memo and advance the...
And that's why it took me a minute to find that, because I wanted to see how Bill O'Reilly covered this. I got to watch some of the clip, not the whole thing in its entirety, but he's kind of leaning towards saying to the Democrats, hey, we don't have to do this, you don't have to shut down the entire country. Again, it's going to seem like some people are picking a side and they're blaming the Democrats, and some people are. Flat out, that's just what it is. I don't think it has to be that way. I think there's enough going on to where we have other things to focus on, and the government needs to stay open. But nonetheless, we'll see what happens, because we've gone through this a couple times last year, and it was extremely frustrating. I'm just hoping that they do better this time around.
Minnesota chaos story. And the way to do that is to understand what's happening in the big political picture. So when Barack Obama was president, 2 terms, as you know, all right, and the last one was 2012 to 16, or 2013 to 17, all right? He lost in 16. The Democrats lost to Trump. Now, in the second term, there were some very interesting statistics about illegal immigration. So, in one term, Barack Obama deported more than 2 million foreign nationals. 2 million. Now, compare that to Biden's 4 years in office, 545,000. Look at that. In Trump's first term, he deported 935,000. So Obama leads the league by far in deportations. Yet you didn't hear his own party crucify him at all. You didn't hear the American media go after Barack Obama, did you? No, they didn't do it. That just shows you how hollow this whole thing is. Now, just give you another stat that you find interesting. Asylum applications filed under Barack Obama's last term, 4 years, 239,000. And the Obama administration...
See, and this is how I know that a lot of people don't pay attention to these numbers, because they'll get mad and they'll be screaming at Trump, and I'll say things on the live stream as we cover it daily, right? I'll say things like, look, guys, like, President Trump's administration is not even touching what Obama did when he was doing deportations. It's not even touching it. But that's how you can tell that people don't do their research. That's how you can tell that they're not paying attention.
Only granted 35,000 asylum. Look at that. And then the moment that another Democrat, Biden, came in, everybody 5,000 asylum. Look at that. And then the moment...
So 239,000 cases, and he admits only 35,000. What is that? That's ridiculous. That still leaves what? 204,000 people? Like, that's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like, but people aren't paying attention to these numbers. They're just so upset with President Trump and what they're seeing with ICE, and everybody kind of, recording these horrible encounters with ICE. Also, at the same time, harassing ICE and destroying government property. And let's just be honest. Let's list all the things that we see in the video. We do see ICE doing some pretty questionable things, but we see the protesters doing the same thing.
That another Democrat, Biden, came in, everybody got asylum. Everybody came across. And the party applauded that. But the party didn't, as I said, criticize Obama. All right? So Barack Obama, if you read Confronting the Presidents, I gave him pretty good marks. I don't like the way Obamacare was put together, but he worked hard. And I thought he had a pretty good visions of what was right and what was wrong. And he was very clear about illegal immigration.
Alrighty, guys, this is the before, and this is our customer system after. These new all-electric...
What will it take?
There are those in the immigrants' rights community who have argued passionately that we should simply provide those who are illegally with legal status, or at least ignore the laws on the books and put an end to deportation until we have better laws. Ultimately, our nation, like all nations, has the right and obligation to control its borders and set laws for residency and citizenship. And no matter how decent they are, no matter their reasons, the 11 million who broke these laws should be held accountable.
And now, every single Democrat elected to the House and Senate disagrees with Barack Obama. That's a stunning piece of history. A total reversal of a party philosophy. And Mr. Obama is still very popular among Democrats. And I'll tell you why this is happening.
And we saw that when Kamala ran. We saw like plenty of time. We've seen Barack. When did he go out? He went out to what was it, West Virginia, when Winsome was running against oh man, I can't remember this lady's last name. Something Burger. It starts like that. I don't mean to like, man. That's why I'm just saying the last part of it, because it's kind of like two words in one. But I don't remember. But I know it was also against African American lady named Winsome, and Barack went out there for that. Normally, when they want to kind of like sway the vote one way or another, they kind of like tap on Barack and they kind of call on him, and they're like, "Hey, Barack, we need you to kind of like come out, sway the black vote, make the people vote this way, convince them, say these things, and they bring Obama out." So like that's pretty normal. He is very popular still amongst the party.
In a moment. So there was a little bit of dissent, to be fair. Some House Democrats sent letters. They didn't like the detention and breakup of the families. Nobody likes that. On and on. But it was very muted. And the press just totally, you didn't see it every night. Oh, poor immigrants. None of that happened. None of it. Okay, now why the change? Why the change in the party? This is a key question. Republicans have remained consistent. No amnesty, close the border, enforce the law. But the Democrats have changed 180 degrees. So there's a group that Sinclair Broadcasting, they have a show every week, the National News Desk. And they tackled this question just recently, maybe a week ago. Roll tape.
So a former DHS senior advisor tells us he believes this Democratic shift started with the Biden administration and is now intensifying during Trump's second term, noting how previous Democratic administrations handled illegal immigration and the changes from 2021 to 2025.
The first administration in history to completely abandon their federal responsibilities to secure the border and enforce the immigration laws of this country.
Pointing to the numbers, national security expert and former DHS senior advisor Charles Marino telling the National News Desk he believes this Democratic reversal in part started 5 years ago.
We have seen now an abandonment by the party at large where they do not want to see these laws enforced.
5 years ago. Why did they do it? Oh, I think it's hate Trump. That's what it is. The Democratic Party understood that Donald Trump, one of his main reasons for running was to get the immigration situation under control. And it worked for him. He won the election, I think, because of it. So they opposed everything he did. That's what. It's not about the foreign nationals, the poor migrants. Not about that. It's about Trump. Oh, if he supports something, we're against it. And that's why this debacle blew up. That's why it did. Because anybody could see under Biden the disaster. 15 million people, maybe 1.5 million hardened violent criminals, Americans getting brutalized. You've heard all the cases, okay? I mean, anybody can see it. And it's wrong. And that's what we're dealing with today. So the reason that the Democratic Party, and to this very moment, will not cooperate on immigration law at all is because they hate Trump. And that's the memo. Let's face it, the U.S. with covering the alpha.
If you can't quit the P word, I want to let you know that Scripture tells us that
Frank, and the despicable human being that he is, running for Senate against a guy named Republican named Norm in residence, very small. I remember covering the Al Franken, the despicable human being that he is, running for Senate against a guy named Republican named Norm Coleman. It was close, really close. And we spent a lot of time on the O'Reilly factor because we despise Franken and understand what kind of a destructive person he is. So we spent a lot of time on this. And Franken ultimately prevailed and had to resign later on. But what happened to a state that was closed and now is a state is crazy left? Joining us now from Marshall, Minnesota, is the former House Minority Leader for Minnesota, Marty Seifert. So, Marty, very simple question. What happened, man? What are we looking at here?
Well, Bill, I think one thing that people don't understand about Minnesota is this close. The Minnesota House of Representatives has 134 people. There's 67 Democrats and 67 Republicans. The Senate has 67 members. They have 34 Democrats and 33 Republicans. It couldn't be any closer. We have 8 members of Congress. 4 are Democrats, 4 are Republicans. With Tim Walz as her running mate, Kamala Harris got a little over 51%. So if you look at the real statistics in Minnesota, we are a tied state with a tiny bit of lean to the Democrats. But because 59% of our population lives in the 7-county metro, it does tilt our statewide races more towards the liberal side, and we hold no statewide office. We haven't won a statewide election since 2006. 20 years ago, Tim Pawlenty got elected by a plurality. When I was in the legislature, I was elected in 96. We had a moderate Republican governor, Arnie Carlson, for 8 years. We had Jesse Ventura, you might remember him.
Sure.
An independent for 4 years. And then Tim Pawlenty, a moderate to conservative Republican, for 8 years. So I never served with a Democrat in Minnesota as the governor. I had 2 Republicans and an independent for the 14 years I was in the legislature. Now, you said what's happened. Minnesota has, like a lot of states, it's become more polarized. We used to have a lot of split tickets. I won my House seat the first year, the same year that Bill Clinton carried my seat, and I had a Democrat congressman carry my seat. But people split their ticket for me as a Republican. So I have Southwest Minnesota in my area. So if you look at Minnesota just from an analytical point of view, the loud have gotten a lot of attention, but I would say the silent majority, that the butcher, baker, and candlestick maker that mind their own business, that work hard, raise their kids, they don't have time to go out and blow whistles and scream at people. But we do have a lot of concerns in Minnesota. We have a deep humanity here. The death of that young man in Minneapolis is disturbing to anyone who watched it. And I'm Republican, but I'm not dumb. And I know there's a fine line between those two sometimes.
And now a lot of people even have changed their stance on that, right? Because since the video of Alex Petty has come out, so much more information has come out, right? Now we even also have the video where we see him cursing at the ICE agents and kind of kicking the vehicle and then kicking it again until the light falls off. And then, like, now you have a lot of people saying, well, hey, this guy was an agitator. You know, like, maybe actually what someone like Nick Fuentes was saying wasn't so wrong, right? Maybe he was actually right because of some of the stuff we're seeing coming out about this guy now.
But at the end of the day, we do have to have some humanity, and this has to be toned down. I watched Tom Homan's press conference this morning, and I think Tom Homan is not leaving the state, he said, until I have this figured out. And his talks with Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison and our public safety commissioner were very, I think, very, what I want to say, constructive.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to the specifics. ICE is changing a lot of the things, but here's my analysis. And I've been in Minnesota many times, and up in Rainy Lake, up north. What you're saying is right, that the rural part of Minnesota is traditional conservative, and the big city dominance in Minneapolis, St. Paul is very liberal. But when you have a stranglehold on the messaging, which Walz and Fry and your crazy attorney general and the Minneapolis media, which is all left-wing, all right, when you have that kind of a stranglehold, that is the impression that gets out. And you mentioned Mr. Petty, the Minnesotan who was shot down and killed. Well, he was the victim of agitation by the far left, in my opinion. Would you disagree with that?
The path to higher test scores and more college and scholarship options starts at KD. For a limited time, save $500.
Was shot down and killed. All right, when you have that kind of a stranglehold, that is the impression that gets out. Fry and your crazy attorney general and the Minneapolis media, which is all left-wing, all right, when you have that kind of a stranglehold, that is the impression that gets out. And you mentioned Mr. Petty, the Minnesotan who was shot down and killed. Well, he was the victim of agitation by the far left, in my opinion. Would you disagree with that?
Well, I look at it from this perspective, and I haven't studied that deeply.
So a victim by the far left, like, of agitation. I can't say that Bill's completely wrong. Some people did feel like this was some people literally felt like Alex Petty was some people use the word assassinated. It was a stage murder. It's kind of crazy, and some of that was just because they saw the previous footage of I think it was 11 days prior when he had died at the time, where he had that other interaction with ICE, and they're like, well, he has a gun on him in this video, and they're not taking the gun in this video, so what happened? Why is a couple days later it's so violent? You know, things seem so volatile, and the man ends up losing his life. Like, there's a lot of things. So when Bill says that he feels like he's from agitation to far left, it's hard to argue it, right? It's hard to say that he's wrong in that, because we see the video of him kicking the ICE truck, and it's like, the minute people saw that, they were like, oh, this guy's an agitator. Like, he actually didn't just he's not some innocent angel, that just got his life taken. I didn't agree with that by any means. I'm listening, I'm taking it in, because that's what we do over here. We watch everything and we collect the facts. But I mean, yeah, I was bothered a little bit by seeing the prior video and seeing that same interaction look so similar to the same day that he died, and then it just The only difference is that day they happen to be disarming him and they actually shoot him. So it's like some people are like this was staged because of what happened a couple days prior. I'm not going to go as far as to say that I subscribe to that school of thought, but I mean, I don't think it's that far-fetched.
But at the end of the day, we have a young man who's dead, who was shot multiple times. Was he radicalized by people? I don't know. I think a lot of people in Minneapolis got caught up in feeling constitutional rights were being abused. And it's not all paid agitators. I have people that I know personally who went out because they felt that it was just getting over the top on how things were happening. Now, ICE operations, in my opinion, happened here and in all other 49 states under Barack Obama, as you just outlined here a few minutes ago. And it was done professionally and quietly. And I think announcing the cavalry's coming with uniforms and press conferences and all this, there's better ways of executing the laws.
Everybody knows that the footprint of the federal government might have been lessened. But if you're going to tell me that a 37-year-old guy who kicks the backlight out of an ICE truck 8 days ago and breaks his rib in a process and then seeks out a confrontation with ICE agents while carrying a loaded gun. You're going to tell me that's rational Minnesota conduct? It is not, Marty. It's not.
And I'm not rationalizing that, Bill. I'm just saying that.
Just so you know,
at the end of the day,
was a victim. There's no end of any days, okay? There's no end of any days. That man and the woman before him, Miss Good, all right, are the victims of this far, far left demonization of the federal government. That's what they're victims of. And anybody who disputes that doesn't want to know the truth.
Well, I think your point is well taken, Bill, that if you...
See, I don't think Bill's making a bad point here. I agree with Marty saying your point here is well taken. And I think it's true to some extent what Bill is saying. He's like, they're victims of people demonizing the government, and it's just kind of like, it's hard to see, it's hard to hear, but it's like, what else do you get from it? You see the things that are happening, whether it's Miss Good's video where they're finding extra footage and we see something, that might not be so great on her end. But then you see people come back out and they say, okay, so because she did this, she deserved to get shot in the neck or face. Of course not, because what we see 11 days prior with Alex Petty, he deserves to just be shot dead in the street like a dog. It's like, of course not. But these are the things that we're seeing. I just think Bill O'Reilly does have a point here when he says that he feels like they're victims of people who demonize the government. I just feel like he's kind of right when it comes to this. I feel like he's talked about the fact that this is going to be something that is going to be a problem, not in just the midterms, but even when 2028 comes up, because people are paying very, 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 very close attention to ICE. We're getting so much exposure in what they're doing. And regardless of people saying that, this is being like, I don't know, like this is being pushed out there to kind of make people feel a certain type of way about ICE, and they're pushing a certain rhetoric. I can't say that that's not true, but what I can say is that it's working for some people. Some people are super emotionally charged about what they're seeing ICE do, and they don't like it. They're pissed off about it. And if they could get Trump out of office tomorrow, they would have already done it.
You want to avoid conflict, you don't walk into conflict with a loaded gun. I think people all understand that. I think this will all get litigated as time goes on motivations and time frames and so forth. But anyone who watched the film is disturbed by it, whether they're conservative, whether they're independent, whether they're Democrat, whatever.
We're not callous here, and we have called a month ago for a lighter approach by the federal government. Marty, thanks very much. Good to see you. Stay well.
You drink it without thinking. But what if Allah tested you by
When you're buried, would rather order on stuff I don't want to deal with. Okay, let's wrap it up. As you know, I'll be off tomorrow, and I'm feeling better, but I'm still dealing with stuff I don't want to deal with. But what else? No other choice. You got to deal with it, right? So I'm glad I had the little time over the weekend. I'm not going to do much. And it is the coldest snap in 10 years here. It's going to be 0 degrees on Saturday in New York. When I was a kid, we loved this weather because we could play pond hockey, ice hockey. But there's so much snow on the ice. You know, we had our guys come out with shovels and we'd shovel the stuff out, just like they do in Canada. But we loved it. Colder the better because we're playing ice hockey all the time. But now, 0 degrees Saturday, not going to be a lot of people out. And I have to work in the sense that I'm writing the new book. We're going to announce everything about the new book next week. I believe it's next week we'll have an announcement. But I'm writing it. We're about 70% done. And it's totally different than any of the other books. And we'll tell you about it next week. And then we got to keep an eye on Iran. Now, here's the situation, as far as I know it. So there are 3 principles involved here. The United States, Israel, and the Gulf states led by Saudi Arabia. Okay? Saudi Arabia hates Iran. It's a Muslim thing. Okay? You can figure it out if you want. Despise, really wicked hatred. Israel, obviously, Iran wants to slaughter every Jew in the world, so you're not going to be really friendly to that. In the United States, we had to deal with so much terrorism since 2001, a lot of it absolutely sponsored by Iran. If you want to know about it, you read my book, Killing the Killers. And we go through the Soleimani thing and the Iran thing, everything. And that's the best source of information. So right now, the United States government, CIA, Mossad is the intel of Israel. And I don't know what the Saudi Arabian intel service is, but they have one. So they're conferring. All of them are conferring. And what they don't want is the United States to go in and blow the hell out of the mullahs and then have an uprising in the Muslim world. All right, that's the impediment. They understand the Iranian people, and this goes to confronting evil. They've had it with the mullahs. They want them out. There's no popular support. There's a number of 36,000 that the Revolutionary Guard killed in the last month. Now, nobody can confirm that. But I'll tell you, it's a lot of dead. It's just like the Shah did when they booted him. The same thing. But now the Persian people say, we've had enough of this. So we have to seize the moment. We, the good people in the world. The EU, just today, declared Iran a terror nation. Big. So you're not going to get any dissent. Okay?
Yeah, that was something that I did see that I kind of wanted to show you guys, that I thought to myself, wow, so the EU declares Iran as, and I'm thinking to myself, that's a big deal. Like Bill O'Reilly points that out and he says, this is a big deal that they actually did that.
The United States does what it does. I don't know what that will be. I don't know. But it has to be a kill shot to the mullahs, just like Maduro. So they either got to kill him or arrest him. The mullahs know it's coming. They've already made their deal to Putin. I hear the number is $100 million just to Putin himself to take them. So you remember Assad of Syria, he bolted out of there and went to Moscow. Well, he paid Putin big dollars. I don't know how much. And Putin's the richest man in the world. And again, we chronicle that in Confronting Evil. So the mullahs have already got their deal made, that they're out of there, and they don't want to die. Trump is basically kind of give them you got to be out by Wednesday or whatever day. I don't know what day. But this is coming. So at any time, if the mullahs say, blank you, Mr. President Trump, it's on, as they say. We're watching that. We have exceedingly good contacts in the federal government. As you know, we're so far ahead on this Minnesota story. There's nobody close to us in really putting together the whole mosaic there. Nobody. And that's really shocking. You've got ABC, NBC, CBS, millions of dollars. It's just me and my guys against
And they don't want to tell the truth. They don't want to give us the truth. That's why nobody watches them, right? Not MSNBC, not CNN. We watch everything over here. I say why? Because both sides lie, and we want to collect the truth and put it together and get the truth. But that's what they do. They both lie to us, right? So speaking of which, let's go over to Pam Bondi now, talking about Don Lemon's arrest. This has been interesting because even Don Lemon has spoken out, since his arrest. Even a couple days ago, we saw some of that. I wasn't on. I was having fun up in the mountains, so I didn't get a chance to react to some of that stuff with you guys. But now that I'm done with all that snow and being in the mountains and looking at, those snowy properties, let's see now some of the things that Don Lemon was talking about in regards to his arrest. He's already went on record to say, I'm not going to be silenced. So he already feels like there's some type of motive behind this that has to do with trying to keep him quiet. So let's take a listen.
Switch to TurboTax. File free.
But we have lots of news to start our morning. So let's start here from Los Angeles, where former TV anchor Don Lemon has now been arrested and is expected in federal court today. The DOJ is claiming the TV journalist was part of a protest that disrupted a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota earlier this month after reports that the pastor was an immigration and customs enforcement official. But Lemon says he was there covering the protest. Attorney General Pam Bondi posting this on X, saying, at my direction early this morning, federal agents arrested Don Lemon, Trey Jean Cruz, Georgia Fort, and Jamil Idel Lundy in connection with a coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. CBS News correspondent Ian Lee comes to us live from Minneapolis. He's been covering all of this morning. So, Ian, what more do we know about this arrest and how it happened?
Well, this arrest happened on Thursday. Federal agents went to arrest Don Lemon, and he is being charged with the FACE Act. Now, it's important to note this incident happened 2 weeks ago at City's Church in St. Paul. Don Lemon was in there when protesters disrupted arrest happened on Thursday. Federal agents went to arrest Don Lemon, and he is being charged with the FACE Act. Now, it's important to note this incident happened 2 weeks ago at City's Church in St. Paul. Don Lemon was in there when protesters disrupted this church service. Don Lemon was trying to interview people during that church service or during the disruption. An appellate court here in Minnesota declined to bring these charges against him. And so we heard that Pam Bondi, from her direction, she ordered that his arrest. And so this still seems like it's going to be an uphill battle for the federal government, with the fact that a court has already said that they weren't going to have these charges against him.
All right, so one of the charges has to do with the FACE Act. Ian, what is the FACE Act?
So the FACE Act has several components to it. The first component is to help people who want access to an abortion clinic or reproductive health, that no one can block their access. But if you keep reading down, there's another section to the FACE Act, and I'm going to read it to you. It's a bit of legal jargon, but just stay with me. It prohibits by force or threat or threat of force or by physical obstruction, intentional injuries, intimidates or interfere with or attempt to injure, intimidate or interfere with. So a lot of things there. Any person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. And I think that's the key part there. This group of people, protesters, did, from when you look at the video, disrupt this church service. So will this be a violation of the FACE Act? And that is going to be for judges to decide. And, what's interesting also about it is this is really a conflict of the First Amendment. You have...
So I guess, based on the way he read that, I don't see much grace in that or much leeway, because I was going to say, so when they did this, were they violent? Again, I haven't had a chance to look at these videos specifically with Don Lemon in the church, but I'm like, was it violent? Was it volatile? Was it aggressive? did they just walk in there and get people's attention and just start talking? Like, how did this work? Because it seems like a clause in there is that they're using the words like intimidate, like intentionally injure. Like, so it seems like this would be something that was more aggressive than what I thought I saw Don Lemon involved with. But if not, you guys let me know.
Freedom of worship, freedom of the press, freedom to protest. And so judges are going to have to determine how does that all stack up. Now, I should point out that the FACE Act has been challenged in courts many times before, and it has been upheld. So that's something also to keep looking at. We also have the Committee to Protect Journalists. They came out with a statement. They said the arrest of journalist Don Lemon in connection with his reporting on a protest in Minnesota should alarm all Americans. Instead of prioritizing accountability and the killing of 2 American citizens, the real Donald Trump administration is devoting its resources to arresting journalists. This behavior has no place in the United States. So, again, this will be up to the courts to decide if this FACE Act had been violated. But as we saw from a previous court ruling, it is an uphill battle.
Yeah, and Ian, I just wonder how you and other journalists, because obviously there's a ton of attention on what's happening in Minnesota today and in the past few weeks. How are you processing this moment as someone whose job it is to observe and record newsworthy moments?
Well, when you have situations like this, and I have been in plenty of them around the world. I have been arrested in Libya and Egypt and other countries while reporting as a journalist. And so, anytime journalists are detained by police or they are arrested or roughed up, it does send a message, The freedom of the press is in the First Amendment in our Constitution for a reason. But, that being said, a court did say that he hadn't violated the FACE Act, or at least they weren't going to bring these charges against him. So, the court system will go through this. And, it is a high bar because the First Amendment is such a protected, those rights are just so protected. We will have to see how the judges rule.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, and I'm the CEO of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you joining us at our next webinar.
All right, Lane, this is another one I had in my history about Don Lemon talking about not being silenced. But even look at the way the guy's attempting to give the explanation to the anchor. He's stuttering, right? He can't get his act together. He can't say one sentence straight. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, all right, sir, do you believe what you're saying about the First Amendment, right? So Don Lemon's going to talk about why he feels like he's trying to be silenced. A little bit he goes into that, but also talks about why he's not going to allow himself to be silenced. So let's take a listen.
Former CNN anchor turned independent journalist Don Lemon appeared in federal court this afternoon to face charges related to a live streaming report he did at a protest during a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota. Here's what he told reporters afterwards.
Last night, the DOJ sent a team of federal agents to arrest me in the middle of the night for something that I've been doing for the last 30 years, and that is covering the news. The First Amendment of the Constitution protects that work for me and for countless of other journalists who do what I do. I stand with all of them, and I will not be silenced. I look forward to my day in court.
Along with Don Lemon, 3 other people were arrested, including Minnesota independent journalist Georgia Fort. She went before a judge today. She joins us tonight. We'll have that interview in a moment. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the arrests are connected to a, quote, coordinated attack on City's church nearly 2 weeks ago. But Lemon and Ford say they were doing their jobs as journalists and were not protesters. All 4 arrested are charged with 1 count of conspiracy against right of religious freedom at place of worship and 1 count of injure, intimidate, and interfere with exercise of right of religious freedom at place of worship. In announcing their arrests on social media this morning, Bondi used the words, quote, at my direction, which is not what you typically see from an attorney general. The White House has posted this photo with the words, when life gives, the words, quote, at my
direction early this morning. Federal agents arrested Don Lemon, Tracy Jean Jews, Georgia Ford, and Jamal Lionel Lundy in connection with the coordinated attacks on city's church. And wow. It's funny because based on her post, it's almost like she puts it out there like Don Lemon has been a part of some type of crew that's just been going around Minnesota like harassing churches, and it's nothing like that. So it's interesting the kind of verbiage that she chooses to use.
Direction, which is not what you typically see from an attorney general. The White House has posted this photo with the words, "When life gives you lemons," along with a chain emoji. President Trump has been critical, obviously, of Don Lemon for years. Lemon himself has not been shy in calling out the president and his administration. A magistrate judge had initially refused to allow federal officials to arrest Lemon and take him into custody, but they took it to a grand jury in Minnesota and got a felony indictment. The indictment, unsealed this afternoon, alleges that Don Lemon and the others charged, quote, oppressed, threatened, and intimidated the church congregants and pastors. Here's some of what Lemon said during that live stream. Take a look.
I'm just here photographing. I'm not part of the group. I'm just here photographing. I'm a journalist. You don't know. That's what they're saying. So we're here just chronicling and reporting. We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them.
Don Lemon's attorney released a statement saying, in part, quote, this unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. When agents showed up at Georgia Fort's door yesterday, she started recording. Here's some of her message.
Are you tired of getting lowball cash offers on your property? When I buy your property,
You guys, I wanted to alert the public that agents are at my door right now. This is all stemming from the fact that I filmed a protest as a member of the media. We are supposed to have our constitutional right of the freedom to film, to be a member of the press. I don't feel like I have my First Amendment right as a member of the press. Because now federal agents are at my door arresting me for filming the church protest a few weeks ago.
It was a live stream she did on Facebook. Journalist Georgia Fort is out of jail and joins me tonight. Georgia, first of all, how are you doing? And were you surprised that you were arrested? Obviously, previous attempts to arrest you had been blocked by federal courts.
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. It is quite frightening to have 24 agents outside of your home. My children were home with me when I was arrested. And so, it's been a long day. And yes, it was extremely shocking.
You had 24 agents show up at your door?
Yes.
I want to read part of what the Justice Department alleged in the indictment and let you respond. They claim, and you and the other defendants, quote, entered the church in a coordinated takeover-style attack and engaged in acts of oppression, intimidation, threats, interference, and physical obstruction, they said, and, quote, as a result of defendants' conduct, the pastor and congregation were forced to terminate the church's worship service. Congregants fled the church building, fear for their safety. Other congregants took steps to implement an emergency plan, and young children were left to wonder, as one child put it, if their parents were going to die. What is your reaction to that?
Anderson, I am a journalist, just like you. I went in my capacity as a journalist. I documented as a journalist. The footage is published. It speaks for itself.
You captured video of your own arrest, federal agents outside your home. Can you just talk about that experience?
As journalists, we never want to be the story, but unfortunately, I did find myself in a predicament where I felt that I needed to be able to tell my own story, that I needed the world to see that journalism is on trial, that we are at a state in our nation where if you are documenting what's happening, you may be criminalized for it. You may be arrested. And so I think what is happening in Minnesota.
I mean, it's kind of crazy to be not a part of the protest and not be, even if it was peaceful and it was in the church, but to not be a part of it at all and to not be doing anything and to just say, I want to take my phone out and record this because I'm a journalist and now you have charges. That's crazy work. That's crazy work. So I don't know what's going on with that. I don't like that. I'm hoping that there's something there that we just don't know, or there's a piece of information that hasn't come out yet. But just to pull your phone out and say, I want to capture this moment, and you're not even a part of the protest, and now you have charges, that literally is insane to me.
Overall should be quite alarming to the entire nation. I think what happened to me today as an independent journalist, what happened to Don Lemon being arrested for reporting what's happening, I think people should be alarmed. And I think mainstream media should also be really concerned because if they can criminalize a journalist here in Minnesota, whether you're independent or not, I think that we've seen a track record where this is just going to continue to escalate.
How do you face something like this? I mean, obviously, the federal government has unlimited resources. What is your next move, both legally and just in terms of the work you do?
You know, I am a mother of 3 daughters. Right now, my focus is on making sure that they can recover from the trauma of what they experienced today and making sure that I can recover. From there, I have an incredible legal team, very reputable among media leaders across the country. And so I am counting on them to do what they do best.
You have no doubt that this is meant to intimidate not just yourself and Don Lemon and the others who were charged, but journalists everywhere.
I would ask you, how does it feel to you to see a journalist arrested for simply reporting the news? I would challenge every journalist in America to ask themselves how it felt to them today to see their colleagues be arrested for reporting the news. And if any of them say that it made them fearful, it made them concerned, it made them second guess going out tomorrow and covering what's happening in their communities, then yeah, I would say that that was probably the intent. It does send a chilling message to our entire industry. I've been in journalism for several years. I've been in media almost 2 decades, okay? 14 regional Emmy nominations across 2 different regions. I've won 3 regional Emmys here in the Midwest, producing my own television show as an independent journalist. And so, you know, being a journalist who's from here, who's from Minnesota, I've been on the ground. This is my community. I'm not flying in and flying out. I'm here. And I'm doing the best that I can to tell the stories of what's really happening. And
I mean, okay, so it's one thing if a person in the church wanted to record it, they have that right. But I guess they're not going to be in trouble because they would have been in the church, a congregant, whatever, a part of what was going on there. Okay, so it's even crazier for a journalist and you to be a known journalist and people know that that's your job and you can prove those credentials, especially the law enforcement, and you're still getting arrested by taking your phone out to cover something, and they know that you're a journalist, like they know that you're Don Lemon, like that you can prove that you have credentials and you work at CNN. Dude, that should worry all of us right now.
As an American-born citizen, it's always been my understanding that I have that protection under the Constitution, under the First Amendment, that we have a freedom of press. But today, the way that I was treated for simply doing my job, the way that I have been criminalized and dehumanized, it makes me really, really wonder if our Constitution is something of the past and if it's just a thing made up of empty promises at this point, honestly.
Are you intimidated? If that's the objective, which it certainly seems to be.
I will continue to tell the stories of my community.
Georgia Ford, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parents of children who play Roblox. If your child was sexually exploited,
obviously it seems like she doesn't want to answer the question, you know. He says, if indeed the goal was intimidation, are you intimidated? And she doesn't say yes. She just says, I'm still going to go on and tell my story. And I literally just think this is crazy. Like, if we're in danger now of taking out our phones and just because we want to cover something, it starts with the journalist and then it goes to the common man. It's like, it's something we should all be worried about. All right, guys, let's go to the next clip.
All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about this. So Axios released an article, exclusive in secret recordings.
All right, shout out to Kyle Kalinske, a channel favorite. Shout out to Secular Talk. So we got Ted Cruz, right, in a secret conversation that was somehow, some way released, and we heard some things, and it seems like he's trashing Donald Trump. Is he or is he not? Let's take a listen.
Ted Cruz trashes Trump and Vance. Now, before we get to the specifics here, this is bullshit. And what I mean by that is, Ted Cruz wants to run for president in 2028. Everybody fucking knows that. Like, literally everybody knows that. Well, he is not stupid. Well, he is stupid, but not stupid in this way. He sees that Trump's at a 35% approval rating, and J.D. Vance is at the same. He sees MAGA as, like, collapsing around them, right? And so he's trying to differentiate himself and distinguish himself as like, no. I've had issues with these guys. I haven't said shit publicly. I've been a loyal soldier publicly, but I've had issues with these guys, and so I'm actually with you, average voter, and I understand a lot of this shit is fucked up. Okay? So this is, without a doubt, the person who wrote this is close with Cruz, and Cruz leaked it to them, and the guy framed it in a way like, oh, look, I got this secret recording. No, Ted Cruz wanted this to be known, and he gave the guy this information because he wants to run in 2028 and he needs to distance himself from Trump and Trumpism. Okay. And having said that, as you're about to see here, the way in which he tries to distance himself from Trump is embarrassing. Because, like, it's almost like his issues are not with the actual horrific things Trump does. It's like, hey, we need to be worse. Like that's sort of his argument. So let's go ahead and jump in here. Senator Ted Cruz, the Texas Republican eyeing a 2028 White House run, torched Vice President Vance and ridiculed President Trump's tariff policy during private meetings with donors, according to recordings obtained by Axios. By the way, I stand corrected. On the issue of tariffs in particular, he definitely is more intelligent than Trump. But the damage, I should say, is already kind of done. The world's already going to move on without the U.S. because they can't trust.
Well, you know, it makes sense that Kyle's going to take that shot, right? But yes, I would say J.D. Vance, I believe he is very intelligent. A lot of people are pretty... It's pretty obvious to most people that J.D. Vance is going to be like the candidate on the Republican side for 2028. Of course, amongst others, but probably the most likely candidate right now. We kind of see some who the Dems are pushing out right now. We know Gavin Newsom will probably be a top pick for them as well. But yeah, if it's one thing that I'm not going to say more intelligent, right? I do think JD's intelligent, but I do think the same thing about Donald Trump. If anything, what I do know JD is probably more than Donald Trump is he's more conservative. And that I do know for sure. Like, he's definitely going to be more conservative, definitely a way more faith-based, a lot more grounded in his faith than Donald Trump is. So those are some things that I would expect us to see in JD's presidency.
Us anymore. We've already waged the fucking trade war. People are already running into the loving arms of China. The ship has sailed, even if we do reverse course. They say Cruz's rebukes during 2 meetings last year are some of the harshest criticisms of Trump and Vance by fellow Republicans since they took office a year ago. The recordings, nearly 10 minutes in total, provide an unvarnished look at how Cruz is positioning himself as a traditional free trade, pro-interventionist Republican ahead of a possible 2028 primary campaign against the less hawkish Vance. That's incredible. So in other words, he's saying the tariffs are stupid. Okay, he's right about that. But then they go, oh, he's saying, I'm not like Trump because I'm a bigger warmonger.
Okay.
Bro, are you kidding me? He bombed Iran, he bombed Yemen, he bombed Somalia, he bombed Syria, he bombed Nigeria. He's going to bomb Iran again. He did regime change in Venezuela. He's threatening Mexico and Cuba. And your thing is he's not pro-intervention enough? Oh my God. Real finger on the pulse stuff there, Ted. During his talks, Cruz cast Vance as a pawn of conservative podcaster Tucker Carlson. Cruz has accused Carlson of promoting anti-Semitism and an anti-Israel foreign policy in their well-publicized past. I love how in his mind he thinks that's devastating. Like, first of all, J.D. Vance is not anti-Israel. Second of all, the fact that if he was, it would be in OWN is ridiculous. They're literally committing a genocide live streamed in 4K, and you think this is in OWN? Also, to call Vance a pawn of Tucker is such bullshit. Vance is a pawn of Peter Thiel. But so is Ted Cruz, and that's why he doesn't say that. Okay. The recordings of Cruz were provided to Axios by a Republican source. They were made in early 2025 and in the middle of last year, after Trump announced his plan for sweeping tariffs. Cruz warns donors that Trump's tariffs could decimate the economy and lead to impeachment. Oh, interesting. Maybe you should have said some shit publicly about that. Oh, it's going to decimate the economy? So if a Democratic president was doing something that would, quote, devastate the economy or decimate the economy, would Ted Cruz have only kept the criticism behind closed doors? God, what a fucking weasel. I hate this guy so much. It's still fuck Cruz now and forever, okay? This guy is such a fucking little weasel.
Come on, Kyle. He's trying to do a little bit better. But a lot of people, to Kyle's defense, a lot of people do feel this way about Ted Cruz. But we also see that he was pretty much trashing Trump for his immigration rhetoric, right? He's actually went publicly to say, like, hey, I want Donald Trump to pull back on some of his immigration rhetoric. So I can see why Kyle feels this way. I don't know. I feel like as midterms come and 2028 approaches, Ted's trying to make some type of transformation or some type of change. I don't know if it's going to work out for him, but we'll see.
He tells them that after Trump introduced the tariffs in early April 2025, Cruz and a few other senators had a call with Trump in which they urged him to stand down. Cruz says the lengthy call, which stretched past midnight, did not go well, and Trump was yelling and cursing. Quote, Trump was in a bad mood, Cruz tells the donors. I've been in conversations where he was very happy. This was not one of them. Cruz says he told Trump, Mr. President, if we get to November of 2026 and people's 401ks are down 30% and prices are up 10 to 20% at the supermarket, we're going to go into Election Day and face a bloodbath. You're going to lose the House, you're going to lose the Senate, you're going to spend the next 2 years
Oh, he's not lying. 401ks down 30%. That's insane. He's not lying about that.
being impeached every single week. Inshallah, bitch. Inshallah. Trump's response, according to Cruz, fuck you, Ted, which, by the way, also shows Trump. I know it's funny because he always goes after black and brown people and calls them low IQ because he's like an old school racist, like a eugenics style, Nazi style racist. Trump is. But is this not the lowest IQ response you could think of? So Cruz accurately points out, hey, your tariff war is going to lead to this increase in pricing. It's going to lead to a backlash at the ballot box. And his response is, fuck you, Ted. That's not an argument. That's not a rebuttal. In fact, he probably knows deep down he's right, so all he has is, fuck you. Please. When a questioner at the donors session mentions Liberation Day, Trump's branding for his tariffs unveiling, Cruz jokes, I've told my team if anyone uses those words, they will be terminated on the spot. This is not language we use. So again, I love how behind closed doors, yeah, we're really tough on all the tariff stuff, bro. We're totally against this, bro. In public, he's like, tee. I love the president so much. You're just showing you're a two-faced weasel. Cruz also told the donors about battling the White House to accept a trade agreement with India. When a donor asks who in the administration is resistant to reaching such accords, Cruz mentions White House economic advisor Peter Navarro, Vance, and sometimes Trump. Cruz repeatedly brings up Vance in the recordings, tying him to Carlson and accusing him of advancing the podcaster's anti-interventionist foreign policy. By the way, hey, Ted Cruz, I hope you know this. Tucker Carlson is more popular than you are. So you trying to tie J.D. Vance to Tucker is not going to hurt him. Like, God, he's just so out of touch. He's the classic example of he's in that Republican elite D.C. insider circle, and, like, he can't see straight. He doesn't know where the grassroots are at. But when I say grassroots, I mean Normie America, left-wing America, and MAGA America. He doesn't know where they are. Quote, Tucker created J.D. J.D. is Tucker's protege, and they are one and the same, Cruz says. Cruz has been waging a months-long campaign against Carlson on social media, but he has refrained from publicly linking Carlson and Vance, who are friends. In the recordings, Cruz alleges that Vance and Carlson pushed for the ousting of former National Security Advisor Mike Waltz because Waltz supported bombing Iran, a position Trump ultimately embraced. Now, wasn't this also the fucking idiot who was in the group chat and they were like casually discussing classified information and that shit leaked? Like, wasn't that the reason this guy was shit canned? I thought that was. The idea is just about bombing Iran. Like I said, Trump ended up bombing Iran and J.D. Vance ended up supporting bombing Iran because none of these people have any fucking principles. Waltz supported being vigorous against Iran and bombing Iran, and Tucker and JD took Mike out, Cruz tells the donors. I love how this passes for a scandal amidst the hawkish far right. Can you believe this guy wanted to bomb Iran, and for that very common sense opinion, he was axed. Like, I love how to them, like, the default is, well, of course we want to bomb anybody and everybody. And if you disagree with that, you're the crazy one. Duh. Vance has said he supported the bombings of Iran's nuclear sites last year. Yeah. So they're all like, I'm pro-war. No, I'm pro-war. No, I'm pro-war. Jesus Christ, man. Democrats, any Democrats running for office in 2028, hear me now, loud and clear. You need to be anti-war. Do not do this bullshit where you try to either be pro-war or be nuanced and split the difference. No, you need to be anti-war. All of Trump's bombings are wildly fucking illegal and immensely stupid, okay? Let's fucking grow up. This is insane. We live in an imperialist hellhole, and you need to call it out for what it is. They say Cruz also says Vance and Carlson were behind the appointment of Army veteran Daniel Davis, a sharp critic of U.S. support for Israel, to a top national intelligence position. Again, how is that scandalous? Everybody in the administration should be a critic of Israel. The senator called Davis a guy who viciously hates Israel. Good. And said he helped get Davis quickly removed from the job. Oh, my God. At this point, like, is Ted Cruz just an agent of Mossad? That's a serious question I have. Is this guy just an agent of Mossad? When he did that interview with Tucker Carlson, he literally said, like, I got involved in public life to represent Israel. And now here he is trying to get people fired if they're a critic of Israel? How much money has he taken? What's the actual number? Post it in the comment section because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's got to be millions of dollars Ted Cruz has taken from the Israel lobby. And Lord only knows what tapes they have on him in the same way Lord only knows what tapes they have on Lindsey Graham, right? God forbid, the stuff that guy does behind closed doors, that Mossad has probably, 78 different versions of it in HD, right? Like, they got these people on lock, bro. Holy shit. A Cruz spokesperson said in a statement that the senator is the president's greatest ally in the Senate and battles every day in the trenches to advance his agenda. What a weasel. Those battles include fights over staffers who try to enter the administration despite